Hi YouTube friends. Well, this is one of those all of a sudden videos that I was about to make something on the stove and I went, oh, I need to record this because I've been promising you that I would share with you my mother's hot chocolate sauce recipe. Unfortunately, I don't have all the ingredients. I don't have any evaporated milk. And Adam said I could use regular milk, or if I was very brave, I could use sweetened condensed milk and adjust the sugar amount down in the recipe. And I'm going to try doing that. But then I opened up this rather old can of sweetened condensed milk that was on our shelf. And as some of you may know, if you leave it around long enough, it turns to caramel sauce just about. It's kind of brown. I think that might be good. We're going to try it. Okay? But at least you'll have the recipe. That's the whole point. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera down now so that you can see what's going on the stove. Okay, so we're going to just start with a saucepan. And the first item on the recipe is a half a cup of cocoa. Oh, while you're looking on, you may notice that over here are some little cookies. These are some little sugar cookies that Adam made. They're flavored with cardamom and orange. And they are the melt in your mouth kind of, and they're just like bite size. Or if you're trying to be very good, you might be able to get a bite and a half out of them. But, oh my gosh, they're so good. Now, a half a cup of cocoa powder is a significant amount. I really generally feel that recipes where you're making something chocolate that use cocoa powder turn out better. They have wonderful flavor. Now, normally I would combine this half cup of cocoa powder with 3/4 of a cup of sugar on the stove, and I would stir that up first to get the clumps out of the cocoa, okay? But I'm not going to use as much sugar. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of sugar instead of 3/4 cup, and maybe assume that the sweetened condensed milk, which is very sweet, is going to give me, that may be hopeful to think that it is going to give me a half cup's worth of sweetness. But I don't like this to be sweet. I love this chocolate sauce recipe because it really smells and tastes divinely chocolatey. Okay, so I'm just whisking that up, and it's not on any heat yet, of course. Okay, combine cocoa and sugar in a saucepan. Blend in evaporated milk. It says 2/3 of a cup. Let's see, this is a 14-ounce can. Let's see how this goes. I tell you, it is just like caramel. I've heard that if you stick it in, you open the can obviously and stick it in hot water, that it'll really, this would be a very light caramel and a pretty runny caramel, so I don't think it's turned all the way to caramel yet. Adam is such a wonderful scientist when he cooks. He said that the evaporated milk that I don't have would be adding fat, and so he was thinking about the fats in there, and anyway, he was evaluating the scientific impact of not using evaporated milk and using regular milk or using sweetened condensed milk. I appreciate that level of intelligence because I don't have it. All right, I did not use that whole can, so now I've got part of a can of sweetened condensed milk to use in something else. I could make another recipe of this, but I probably won't. Okay, now it says blend in the evaporated milk or sweetened condensed and the syrup. It has light corn syrup. Now, this is not a recipe for, you know, your average diabetic or somebody on a diet. We don't eat this all the time. I often do have some of it in the refrigerator. I like to, it keeps a long time in a little jar. Wonderful on ice cream. Oh, and when it's hot. Tonight, though, what I want to do is we're decorating the Christmas tree and hopefully putting up our little Christmas houses. And we're making some little nibbles, and I bought some, what are those things? Pretzels. And I thought it'd be fun to dip the pretzels, maybe in chocolate sauce. I love salty and sweet together. Salty sweet with a bit of chocolate is even better. Okay. My 1/3 cup measure is getting its use today. All right, now, then I cook and stir it constantly over medium heat until it is boiling. Now, this is a funny little burner that I can heat it up just in the middle. Look at what a mess I'm making. And that's what I'm doing, but I may be challenged to bring this to a boil over that, so I think I'll use the entire burner and pull it to the side. Okay, so I'm just going to stir this. I'm using a whisk. It is pretty stiff, but not too stiff. This will get all the lumps out of the cocoa, and it'll take it a while to come to a boil. So I will, and you really want it to come all the way to a boil, and then you boil and stir for 1 minute. So I'll bring you back when this is ready for that, okay? Okay, now it's starting to do those gloopy bubbles that thick things do when they boil. This chocolate sauce has a very particular, wonderful, wonderful chocolate smell while you're cooking it. Now, I did feel like it was too thick because the sweetened condensed milk is really a lot thicker than evaporated milk is, which really pours just like a regular milk. So I put a little bit of regular milk in there. I wondered if maybe I'd left out too much sugar, so I'd put a little dash of sugar in there. My advice, if you make this recipe, is to follow the recipe that I'm going to give you and don't make these little tweaky changes that I've had to make. Make sure that you have evaporated milk, cocoa powder, and corn syrup. Clear corn syrup on it. Now, if you live elsewhere, oh man, if you live in England, maybe you could use that golden syrup stuff that I hear so much about, which is much better than this. We can't get golden syrup over here, honestly. I think my husband tried to make it one time or something. I'm not sure. Okay, it's really glooping, but it needs to boil and then stay at a boil for a minute. Adam said that this is certainly to make sure that all the sugar dissolves. You don't want any crystals. He said the corn syrup is important in the recipe to make sure that it doesn't crystallize later, which is very important for its longevity. After it boils for a minute, then I'm going to turn it off, take it off the heat, put 1/3 of a cup of butter in it. 1/3 of a cup, if you have a stick of butter, which is a 1/2 cup, so it's about that much, okay, this long end. And then I think a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Let me see. Well, it's got a pretty good chocolatey smell. It really should. It may have more of a difficult time boiling because it is a bit thicker than usual. I'll give it a little bit longer. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with it. Now, it really is shiny and smooth and wonderful. Look at that. Okay, now we'll put the butter in. And because it's so hot, it will melt very quickly. And it'll also bring the temperature down just a bit, and then I'll add the vanilla, because you don't want the vanilla to kind of, it's a bit of alcohol. You don't want that to burn off. So we'll let that butter melt, okay? Now most things I forget, but I do remember watching one of those old John Stossel shows. He was on some evening newsy show, but he would do investigative reporting. And one time he did kind of a blind taste test with lots of very fancy chefs involving imitation vanilla and real vanilla extract, trying to see if they could really discern the difference in when it was used. And they could not taste the difference. And after that, I was like, you know, imitation vanilla it is. Although I know there's lots of people who would shudder at the thought and have to have the real McCoy, and that's fine, but I usually buy the imitation. Okay, that's about ready. Again, so beautifully shiny. Okay, thanks for joining me on this little bitty cooking adventure. I hope you give this a try, especially during the Christmas season. You can